Assalamu alaikum, dear students. We are continuing with chapter 1 material properties, and we have already completed first part of the chapter with notes. So before proceeding to the second part of the chapter, I would like to revise all the notes that I gave you all and explain all question and answers. So let's begin with key points. Number 1. An element is a substance that cannot be split into anything simpler. We all know that all the matter around us is made up of elements, and elements are arranged in periodic table. Then second one, elements are made up of particles called atoms. It is the smallest part of the element that can exist. All 118 elements are made up of atoms, and atoms are very small. We cannot see it with our direct eye, whereas we can see elements, but elements are made up of atoms, small atoms, and atoms cannot be seen with our naked eye. Then third key point, each element has its own type of atom. The atoms of each element are different from the atoms of every other element. That means each element has its own different type of atom. For example, atoms of zinc will be different from atoms of gold, and atoms of gold will be different from atoms of copper. Atoms of copper will be different from atoms of aluminium. So each element has its own type of atom. Then fourth key point, each element has its own chemical symbol. Now chromium is a big spelling, so instead of writing chromium, spelling of chromium all the time, we can write or denote chromium with its chemical symbol. Same goes with all other elements. We can write or denote elements with their chemical symbols. Now we will see what are chemical symbols. Elements and their chemical symbols. Now all the elements are not given here. Few of the elements and their chemical symbols are given here. Hydrogen, capital H. How to write chemical symbol? Symbols will either include first letter or second letter, first or third letter. First letter will always be capital and the second letter will always be small. So first one, hydrogen, is capital H. Helium, capital H, small e, as we discussed earlier. First letter will be capital and the small letter will always be, and the second letter will always be small. So capital H, small e. Lithium, capital capital L, small I. Beryllium, capital B, small e. Boron, capital B. Carbon, capital C. Nitrogen, capital N. Oxygen, capital O. Fluorine, capital F. And neon, capital N, small e. So this is about chemical symbols, elements and their chemical symbols. Let's move on to question and answers. Textual questions. All these questions are already given in notebook. Question number 1. What is an atom? Atoms are the smallest part of an element. Answer is atoms are the smallest part of an element. Yes. Then question number 2. What is an element? So an element is a pure substance which cannot be broken down by chemical means, consisting of atoms. These are substances. We can see and we can feel elements. They are macroscopic. That means we can see elements with our direct eye. Whereas, yes, few elements Like oxygen, gases, so many colorless gases cannot be seen with a direct eye. But yes, most of the elements can be seen with a direct eye. So elements are made up of atoms. Question number 3. Are the atoms in a piece of gold the same as or different from each other? Give reason for your answer. So the question is, are all the atoms in a piece of gold will be same or different from one another? So the answer is all the atoms in a piece of gold will be same, as all the atoms of elements are always identical because of the similar subatomic particles. So in gold, all the atoms will be there are one element is made up of many atoms. So all the atoms present in that piece of element will be same because of subatomic particle chemical properties and some similar subatomic particles. Now, what are subatomic particles? Proton, neutron, and electron. That means gold has a piece of gold has the atoms present in a piece of gold will have same number of proton, electron, and neutron. It will not differ from one another. Question number 4. Are oxygen atom the same as or different from gold atoms? Yes. What is the answer? Can you all guess? Oxygen atoms will be different from gold atoms. Yes. Why? Because these are two different elements. Oxygen and gold are two different elements. So each element, as we already discussed earlier, each element has its own type of atom. Number of proton, electron, and neutron will be different in oxygen atom, and number of proton, electron, and neutron will be different in gold atom. Question number 5. Describe the properties of platinum and list 3 uses of metals. So there are two elements mentioned in the question, platinum and metal. Let's see. Properties of platinum. It is shiny and air and water resistance. That means it cannot get spoiled when it comes in contact. It cannot rust or get spoiled when it comes in contact with air and water. It is air and water resistance. It also conducts electricity. That means it can pass electricity through it. It is a good electrical conductor. Uses of metal. Metal is used to make jewelry, decorative boxes, computer hard disk that store information in layers. So these are the 3 uses of metal. Then question 6. Use the periodic table to list first 5 elements discovered between 1200 and 1700. You all can refer textbook page 99. So these 5 elements are phosphorus, arsenic, zinc, bismuth, and platinum. Question number 7. Mendeleev used evidence to help develop the periodic table. What else did he use? The question is asking and also stating that Dmitry Mendeleev, he was the scientist who arranged all the elements in the periodic table. And this is how the elements were arranged in the periodic table that we use now to study chemistry. So Dmitry Mendeleev arranged all the elements in the periodic table, and before arranging them, he did many studies and investigations. He found out similar properties of the elements, metals and non-metals. the mass number. So the question is, what Mendeleev used evidence to help develop the periodic table. What else did he use? Mendeleev used similar properties of elements to develop the periodic table. With evidences, he also used similar properties. That means he studied each and every element in detail and found properties between the elements before arranging them into periodic tables. Question number 8. List 3 types of evidence that Mendeleev used to help develop the periodic table. A similar question again. Elements are made of elements. So these 3 evidences Mendeleev used to develop the periodic table. First one is elements are made from atoms. Second one, atoms of each element have different masses. And third one, mass number of element. Question 9. Explain why a thin sheet of metal is bendy and a thin sheet of non-metal is not. So a thin sheet of metal bendy, that means we can fold it, but a non-metal cannot be folded. So the answer is, a thin sheet of metal is bendy because its rows of atoms can slide over each other. It's because of the arrangement of atoms in the element. When we fold a piece of metal, what happens to the arrangement of atom inside it? Yes, it's a solid and atoms are stuck to each other. There's no gap between the atoms. But when we are folding it, when we move something, it's like sitting in a big uh, roller coaster. Your body will move in the direction the roller coaster will go. If the roller coaster is tilting towards left, even you tilt towards left. So it's the same thing is happening over here. It's like a roller coaster. When you are bending or tilting a piece of metal, the atoms inside it will also, they will not, the atoms present inside that piece of metal will slide over each other. They will slide over each other instead of colliding with them. Instead of colliding with each other, they will slide over each other, forming a row. This is the reason a piece of thin metal can be bended. It is bendy. Then why a thin sheet of non-metal is not bendy? We cannot bend a thin sheet of non-metal because a thin sheet of non-metal is not bendy, but it is brittle. Brittle, that means it is hard, but it can be broken down easily because there are weak forces between its molecules. Because even if the non-metal is solid, forces of attraction in it is weak, and when we try to bend it, instead of sliding over each other, the atoms, they lose their intermolecular forces of attraction, which results in breaking of the non-metal. Then question number 10. The melting point of chromium is 1890 degrees Celsius. 890 degrees Celsius. The melting point of argon is minus 109 degrees Celsius. Suggest a reason for this difference. So, chromium is a metal, and in its solid state, strong forces hold the atoms together. Much energy is needed to overcome these forces to form liquids or gases. So, chromium is a metal, and As we already discussed, in metals the intermolecular forces is stronger than the forces intermolecular forces present in non-metal. So that's why when intermolecular forces are strong, we need higher temperature to break down that forces of attraction. So all the metals have high melting point. All the metals have high melting point. Whereas argon is a non-metal, and all the non-metals have less strong in forces of attraction than metals. So if the forces of attractions are less strong, the we need less heat energy or to break the forces of attraction. And so non-metals have low melting point. That this is the difference. This is the reason for this difference. Chromium is a metal, and forces of attraction is very strong. To break the strong forces of attraction, we need high temperature, and so its melting point is high. Whereas argon is a non-metal, and it has low weak forces of attraction as compared to metal, and so it needs less thermal energy or heat energy to break down its forces of attraction and convert the solid into a liquid. That's all for today. Thank you.